Sun Woon becomes one of the gods and now has to choose his first starting race. At first, he considers the frogmen since he received insect-related powers, but he quickly drops that idea. Their tribes number over 500, and with such a massive population, influencing them would be way too difficult right now. So instead, he starts looking for a smaller race in trouble. That's when he notices a group of expelled lizard men, and they're perfect. They're weak, exhausted, wounded, and mostly elderly. Cast out from their lands, they've completely lost hope. For Sunun, this is the ideal starting point to conquer the world. Before all of this, Sunun was an unbeatable player in the strategy game Perished World for many years. One day, after a final match, he suddenly pulled straight into the game. And he isn't alone. The best players from other worlds are dragged in as well. Their mission is simple: rule civilizations as gods and lead them to ultimate domination. The last god standing becomes the true god of this world, gaining everything. Those who fail face total death. Back to the lizard men. Given their current condition, Sun Woon can easily become their god. All it takes is a single miracle. And he decides to start with the weakest one of all, a wounded lizard man barely able to keep up with the tribe. As the injured and starved lizard men force their way through the desert, they all freeze in shock when they see an injured animal lying helplessly on the ground, basically served up for them to devour. The desperate lizard men don't even think for a second before jumping onto the unsuspecting prey, going absolutely batshit crazy, wanting to have it all for themselves. The elderly and sick in the back feel utterly crushed, knowing there won't be anything left for them to eat. The healthy lizard men tear through all the flesh and the tasty parts, leaving nothing but bones behind. The greedy bunch even decide to nibble on the leftover bones until one of the benevolent lizard men stops them. He grabs all the remaining bones and offers them to the sick and old ones to eat. Those poor guys are grateful even for bones, eating as if it's the last meal of their lives. The healthy lizard men feel dissatisfied by their benevolent friend's gesture. For them, letting the old and sick eat such insubstantial scraps is a waste, since they're not going to survive for long anyway. Their wounds have only gotten worse. It's a miracle they're even alive at this point. But the benevolent lizard man reminds them of the time when one of the injured, namely Rockrak, risked his life and defended them against a saber-tooth. So instead of being selfish, they should be grateful. Still, it doesn't change the fact, at least to the healthy lizard men, that injured and sick people are eventually going to die. They keep arguing back and forth until night descends and everyone finally falls asleep. While everyone sleeps soundly, Rockra struggles with the rotting wound on his shoulder. As he groans, he notices a blue butterfly seemingly trying to get his attention. Eventually, Rak stands up and begins following the beautiful critter. A few of the lizard men notice Rak leaving and assume he's probably abandoning the lounge for good. But Rak, he's simply driven by curiosity. He's noticed something peculiar up above and wants to see what it is exactly. Maybe he's imagining things since he's the only one who reacted to it. Even if it's just an illusion, he wants to check. And once he gets up there, he finds an entire buffet of beetles stuck together. Rak is pleasantly shocked, realizing he's found enough food for everyone to feast on. With this first revelation, Nebula is one step closer to acquiring a race. The amount of beetles he sent is enough to feed the entire lounge for a few days. It's quite surprising to Nebula that these guys are sharing their blessing with each other without making any fuss. This just shows how strong-willed these people are. Eventually, Rockra decides to put his faith in the god who fed them. He names him the Nameless Beetle God. This comes as yet another surprise to Nebula, who was sure his god name would be related to butterflies. Nonetheless, he's happy to acquire a race and especially happy with this candidate named Rock, a kind-hearted and selfless lizard man who chose to share the blessing with everyone. Nebula is convinced this guy will become a crucial asset in his civilization building. A few days pass, and the lizard men finally find their sanctuary. The wound that had been plaguing Rockra has finally healed too. It's all thanks to the blessing of the Nameless Beetle God. Or at least, that's what Rak believes. He even tries convincing others about the existence of the benevolent one who descended these blessings upon him. His wound healing overnight is proof enough for him. Hell, his shoulder scar is even covered with black scales similar to a beetle. Now, with these blessings in tow, Rak is confident in himself and wants to go buffalo hunting. To prove his newfound strength and the power of the blessings his fellows are struggling to believe. He takes his stance and chucks the spear as hard as he can, obliterating the target tree. Everyone's jaw hit the floor after seeing this display of astronomical strength that practically transcended lizard-man physiology. To understand how they even found this place and why Rak is so dead set on hunting a buffalo, we jump back a few days. Rak is once again following those same hallucination-like visions, and the group is excited at the prospect that they might hit yet another beetle jackpot. They eagerly follow the path only Rak's visions have been able to notice, but Rak warns them that winter is coming and the beetles keep appearing from the direction of the cold winds. If they keep going that way, they might freeze to death. This deeply concerns his fellow lizardmen, who wonder if they should even be following the path Rak's visions are pushing him toward. Rak himself can't confirm whether the visions are leading them anywhere meaningful. Since they have no alternatives, he can only rely on the visions and keep following. Turns out the reason Rak doubts these visions is because Nebula still lacks enough faith. If it weren't for Rak, Nebula doubts he'd be able to influence anything at all. For now, all he can hope is that Rocker keeps believing. Only then will he be able to lead them toward an unimaginable future. Despite not knowing where the visions truly lead, Rockront continues following them and they eventually arrive at a sanctuary. This unexpected salvation spikes everyone's faith. The nameless beetle god has led them to their haven. Nebula's god level jumps by 1, officially making it level 2. His sub-area also increases by 1. This level up unlocks a new skill, Insect Sanctification. This skill lets Nebula choose and designate a priest, and obviously Rockrak is the only fitting candidate for this role. The blessing bestowed upon Rock will help him spread the god's will. Later that night, as Rockra sleeps peacefully among his kin, he hears someone calling his name and drifts into a dream world. There, he meets a mysterious person who extends a hand forward. As Rak reaches out to grasp it, a water buffalo skull suddenly appears in his hand. Rak instinctively understands what he's supposed to do. He raises the skull and adorns the mysterious figure's head with it, and just like that, the nameless beetle god finally manifests before Rak's eyes. It's his first time seeing him, and by morning, he tells everyone about the strange dream. In turn, his kin ask about the god's intentions, and why Rak believes this mysterious deity is asking for a buffalo sacrifice. To hunt a buffalo, they'll need to venture into deep wilderness, which is an extremely dangerous risk, but they can't forget that the one demanding a buffalo is the same being who led them to safety. Still, one lizard man continues to voice his disapproval, pointing out that a hunt like this would require the entire lounge to participate, putting everyone in danger. Even Ray admits he can't afford to endanger the entire lounge. That said, the hunt will still happen, but he'll go alone. Back in the present, right after Ray-Rak showcases his newfound strength coursing through his body, strong enough to obliterate trees, the entire lounge is in pleasant disbelief. The wise old lizard even questions the sheer absurdity of it all. Rockarak was once a guy on the brink of death with a rotting wound. But now Bro is out here smashing trees with javelin throws. As if luck is on their side, Rocker spots an entire herd of buffalo down the hill. It's nothing short of a miracle to see buffalo here. A buffalo herd always migrates to the same place they are already familiar with, so the fact that this herd got lost and wandered here doesn't make sense at all. Rak doesn't bother with the nitty-gritty explanations and charges forward like a starved beast craving blood. All he cares about is hunting and feeding the people he cares about. With a single swing, he strikes one buffalo right in the skull, taking it down instantly. Rock becomes the trailblazer for the lounge, giving everyone the confidence to storm the field with their weapons. Later that day, the whole lounge gathers, stacks all the buffalo skulls, and hangs an entire buffalo upside down as a sacrifice. With everything prepared, Rocker begins the prayers. Everyone joins in, praying for the benevolent nameless beetle god to accept their sacrifices. Nebula watches everything from the skies. The offering is somewhat half-baked, but what truly matters is their sincerity, and the staggering amount of faith Nebula just received proves exactly that. That's why Nebula isn't complaining. Honestly, it's pretty decent for a novice priest. Nebula definitely deserves that juicy faith boost, especially considering how much time and effort he's poured into these lizard men. Right now, the real problem is figuring out how the lizard men will sustain themselves. Since Nebula isn't the god of grass or wilderness, he can't make grass grow or produce water out of thin air. But keep in mind that he is the god of insects. Previously, he used insects, mainly grasshoppers. He used these critters to destroy grasslands and lure the buffalo out of the mountains. But at the moment, the lizard men have zero awareness of how to raise animals. They literally ate even the baby buffalo instead of raising it. Then again, Nebula knows expecting cattle-raising knowledge at this stage is way too much. This oasis also isn't strong enough to support a large population in the future. The lizard men will only survive a few years if things continue like this. Right now, they know nothing about farming or herding, making their future look bleak. Of course, Knowledge and skills aren't things you can magically learn overnight, and teaching them directly would break the rules. It's going to take time, but Nebula is certain they'll eventually get on the right track. He initiates the process by bestowing a small blessing on his current priest. The following day, after the sacrifice, Rak is examining the altar made from buffalo bones. Last night he had a very disturbing dream, one that felt vague yet deeply unsettling. When his friend Zal asks further about it, Rock explains that in the dream the altar trembled precariously. Their oasis was drying up. There were no fish left to catch, and the ground had been over-farmed to the point that growing more plants had become impossible. But Zale believes they have nothing to worry about since their god is clearly taking good care of them. Rak also believes in their god wholeheartedly, and he has immense confidence. But what if the things shown in that dream were actually warnings? If they fail to understand these signs and don't act accordingly, it would be no different from going against their god's will. That's exactly what's making Rakra's nerves snap. As he perches atop the altar, he notices something alarming and calls Zale over to look. Far off in the distance, they see a group marching straight toward their oasis. Rocker immediately realizes why the altar trembled in his dream. Judging by the formation and the dust cloud, this herd of lizard men heading their way is definitely not good news. Rocker and his friend instantly recognize them. Their blue scales, their hulking size, and the beasts they're riding. It all signals one thing: the Blue Leather Tribe, the very same tribe that stole their previous home and forced Rock's group into exile. From the looks of it, these guys are searching for the next place to occupy and destroy. Since the oasis isn't visible from afar, they've coincidentally marched right in this direction. Rak can only hope they'll pass by without noticing anything. Or so they thought, until a loudmouthed scout from the oasis shouts at the Blue Leather Tribe, immediately grabbing their attention. They've messed up, but Rak refuses to see this as misfortune. Maybe this is actually for the better. Maybe it's a mission their god wants them to accomplish. A mission to assimilate the lizard men captured by the Blue Leather Tribe. It's a mission to merge the Blue Leather Tribe with his people. It has to be the god's will. Otherwise, there's no way their deity would drive their old rivals straight toward the oasis. And when Rakara spots those familiar blue butterflies drifting around, his suspicion turns into certainty. This is divine will, and he dares not question it. His job is simple: play his role as the god's apostle, cutting to Nebula, watching everything unfold. He's feeling immensely proud of Rak. Rak must emerge victorious over the Blue Leather Tribe and merge them into the fold, boosting population growth and triggering new advancements. What fascinates Nebula most is Rak's decision-making. He chose this path by himself. This shows Rak as a creature of powerful will. Oh, and by the way, he's already level 14. Even when facing an enemy group, he still thought about the possibility of allying with them. That strong will makes him a prime candidate for future leadership. All Nebula needs to do now is strengthen Rak's faith enough to ensure his decisions naturally align with Nebula's interests. Cutting to the Blue Leather Tribe's leader, the fat bastard scoffs and asks if the oasis belongs to them. Our lizard men fire back with double the scorn, telling these hobos to get the hell out of their turf. The fat ass follows up with another stupid question, asking what's so special about this place. Rocker steps forward and calmly explains that this place is where their god resides, the realm of the nameless beetle god. As expected, the chieftain scoffs again, not understanding why a god would talk to a barbarian like Rak. He's done talking. He orders Rak to leave immediately. If they walk away peacefully, he promises they won't face catastrophic consequences. Rakra snaps back with full confidence, making it crystal clear that the Blue Leather Tribe can't defeat them, no matter their numbers. Of course, the chieftain thinks Rakra is insane for ignoring the overwhelming disadvantage he's facing. But Rak keeps that sassy, confident smile and simply challenges the leader instead of wasting breath. Unsurprisingly, the big boss is pissed at being challenged by someone he considers beneath him. Rak, meanwhile, calls the Blue Leather Tribe a bunch of homeless lambs with nowhere to return to. That's why he's giving them a chance, an opportunity to live under the god's blessing. The fat bastard cracks up in laughter as if Rak just told the funniest mom joke ever. He doesn't buy this god nonsense at all. To him, the one with strength rules, and Rak is heavily outnumbered, yet Rak's will doesn't waver. He takes his stance and makes it clear he won't falter, not when he fully trusts his god. Losing his patience, the Blue Leather Chieftain charges forward at top his beast, ready to crush Rak in one blow. Rak prays for his god to grant him the strength he needs to defeat the foe in front of him. As the beast lunges closer, Rak's only weapon completely shatters, and the monster swings its paw once again to crush him. At that exact moment, Nebula receives a system notification about the clash between two civilizations. Then another notification follows, officially recognizing these lizard men as Nebula's tribe, since he has nurtured them closely and they've lived in his domain for quite some time. This unexpected development unlocks a brand new skill, one that's a complete game-changer for the current battle. When Nebula activates it, we cut back to Rak just as the strike is about to land. But right before the impact, Nebula descends into Rak's body. The beast's paw slams down, amusing the blue leather chieftain, who believes Rak has been flattened, but his joy dies instantly when he spots Rak standing far away, having dodged the attack at the last possible second. Nebula is inside him now, granting a massive power boost and agility Rak never had before. The chieftain attacks again, claiming this time he won't miss. Nebula activates his foresight and sizes up the fat lizard's stats. Despite being arrogant and full of himself, the chieftain's stats are painfully ordinary, weak enough for Rak to handle even without Nebula. But there's a problem. The beast he's riding won't be easy to deal with, especially while fighting the chieftain simultaneously. That beast is known as the Man and Drake. This is exactly why Nebula is possessing Rak. The skill grants Rak a new stat known as Divinity, represented by the letter D. A single D equals 200 attribute points. Since Rak has 3 Ds attached with every attribute, his every attribute, including strength, jumps from 30 to 630. That's how Rakara sprints toward his enemy at lightning speed and literally flips the massive Drake over with his bare hands without breaking a sweat. The onlookers are left with their eyes popping out of their skulls. This reaction is exactly what Nebula expected. Even the fat-ass chieftain is in disbelief, refusing to accept the reality in front of him. He assumes it must be some kind of trick. After crawling out from beneath his toppled Drake, he lunges at Rak with a dagger aimed at his chest. But Rak ends the fight with a humiliating, ego-shattering slap straight across the bastard's face. The slap is as overpowering as my mother's, instantly knocking the strength out of the chieftain's knees. With their leader down, Rak dares the rest to step forward if they feel brave enough. Just as Nebula predicted, everyone drops their weapons and surrenders politely to Ray. Once it's over, Rak regains control of his body. He's in complete denial of what just happened. The only explanation he can think of is that his god possessed him. Later that day, the newly joined lizard men gather around the altar and finally get to eat. They're shocked when they realize Rocker's group are the same people who vanished into the wilderness long ago. Their scale color changed due to the cruel conditions they faced. The gray lizard men proudly recount their journey, how they followed the nameless beetle god who guided them to this sanctuary. Otherwise, they would have died, lost in the wilderness, one by one. The blue lizards find the idea of having a benevolent god quite fascinating. Honestly, they wouldn't have believed any of this crap if Rak hadn't displayed that inhumane strength. Strength that clearly transcends the norm. Cut to Rak and his friend Zale. The friend is seriously worried about everything that's happened with the Blue Leather tribe. Because of this new tribe joining the Oasis, their population has exploded, almost a 600% increase. At this rate, it won't be long before this place runs out of resources, putting them back in the same miserable situation they once escaped from. But it seems Rak already knows what they're supposed to do. They're leaving this place. Of course, Zale hates that idea. They can't just wander the wilderness again without a proper destination. But Rock believes their god has already expressed his will. The answer to Zale's worries lies within their newly joined brothers. They will become the catalyst, and through unity, they will figure out the way forward. The next day arrives. Some of the gray lizard men are trying to tame this blue leather trib's deceased leader beast. By the way, one of the big lizard men's name is Yuri. Despite their best effort, they aren't able to tame this crazy fella. Right then, Rak arrives, making that Drake sweat under his familiar presence. The creature recalls getting knocked out with a single swing, a haunting memory that makes the poor guy shudder and step back, but Rak is just here to feed this big dude. He offers the creature a few roots to feast on. Of course, the creature hesitates, but eventually starts nibbling on the roots, much to everyone's shock. After all, they'd been trying their ass off to tame this guy. Yet, in Rak's presence, the monster instantly switches to friendly mode, cozying up to him like they've been buddies forever. Rak then offers him more radishes to eat. Since the god chose to spare this creature, there has to be something significant about him, or at least that's what Rock believes. That's exactly why he's honoring his god's will by feeding and caring for this creature. After finishing everything, the creature looks around for more. But Rock won't cave into Manoon's desires. He must learn to be patient. The creature nods in approval and reluctantly steps back, doing exactly what his new master wants. With that, Rak proceeds to leave, telling his fellows to inform him if Manoon causes another scene. It looks like Yuri has learned something from this situation, but decides to voice it later. We then cut to Rak interviewing a blue lizard man. Turns out this blue guy has the skills to craft weapons. It was their leader' weird and stringent rules that held him back. If he'd been given proper resources, he could have made even better weapons. The current issue is wood availability. He used leftover wood for fuel needed for weapon making. After gathering all the details about the weapons and materials, Rak dismisses the man, promising to meet him tomorrow with a final decision. The next lizard man to step forward is an old guy missing his left hand. He introduces himself as a wanderer, someone who drifts from place to place, searching for a home. During his travels, he learned how to identify pathways. There are lands he discovered with enough natural resources to sustain their current population. Though he isn't sure if those lands are still unoccupied, there's a good chance other wanderers or tribes might have already claimed them. Rak isn't fazed by this. If those occupiers are hostile, he plans to defeat them and take their land. The wanderer acknowledges Rak's decision and is willing to trust whatever he has planned. Rak follows up with another question, asking if he'd also be willing to trust and believe in the same god. The wanderer responds by pointing at the sky. He puts his faith in the stars. At night, he explains, if one learns to understand the paths of the stars, they can never lose their way. Rak promises to put his faith in the stars, too. If the wanderer manages to prove his point in the next few days, the wanderer then spends some time familiarizing Rak with ropes. Once he's done dumping his knowledge about stargazing, he wants Rak to observe the stars at the same time the following night. Right then, Yuri arrives to meet Rak. He's clearly here with something on his mind. For a moment, Rak suspects it's about Manon, but it's actually not. Though Yuri does share one interesting tidbit. Man may look a bit unhappy with the food, but he's as docile as a dog if you bring him his meals on time. The real reason for Yuri's visit is that he's heard rumors that everyone will soon be traveling out of this place, and for that, they must prepare food so they don't starve during the journey. Today, Yuri noticed how Rak managed to tame a voracious drake like it was nothing more than a pet dog. This sparked an idea in him. They could also try taming those buffaloes and secure their food supply. With that epiphany, Rak's tribe discovers a new survival skill, livestock farming. You see, humans throughout history followed two major subsistence strategies. The first is agriculture, and the second is livestock production. If Nebula had to choose between the two, he'd go for agriculture since it's easier to sustain long-term. History proves it. Our ancestors and early civilizations all settled near rivers. However, the species Nebula rules over isn't human. The lizard men have strong physiques and natural environmental adaptability. Given that the lizard men would perform far better in livestock production than in agriculture, furthermore, to advance, they must learn to make and use tools. And as we speak, that one blue lizard man with smithing skills is trying to forge a weapon out of iron. Nebula is glad they can already produce primitive iron tools. Though weaker than bronze, it works for now. In fact, it's a huge leap for a tribe that previously relied only on stone. Another thing that caught Nebula's attention is the guy with astronomy knowledge. Though the lizard man's astronomy is just beginner-level stuff, Nebula hopes the stargazer will expand his knowledge further. Later that night, Rak looks up at the sky, pleasantly realizing the stargazer was right. The stars really are a heavenly compass. He finally understands the significance of astronomy and how it can guide their future. A while later, everyone gathers around the altar where Rakra delivers the depressing news. He starts by reminding them how much time has passed since the Benevolent One brought them to this land. Not only that, but the Almighty also reunited them with their other brothers. The Benevolent One chose to save their brethren instead of letting them wander into the wilderness and die. The god knew there was strength and unity, otherwise he wouldn't have accepted them into his sanctuary. However, Rak believes it's finally time they leave this place and expand their influence. He calls out Stargazer and introduces him to the audience, a guy who greatly helped Rak understand the movement of the stars. What's more, Rak has already confirmed that the knowledge he possesses isn't some hoax. That's exactly why he, the chieftain of this lizardman tribe, grants Stargazer the title of their trib's guide. From this point onward, it should be common knowledge that Stargazer will be their sole guide, the one responsible for leading everyone to their new home. Now, Rak wants Stargazer to announce to the masses where they will be heading next. The wise lizard raises his finger and points in a certain direction. When the post-dawn morning sun rises, they will begin their journey southward. The journey will last a full 10 days. Along the way, they will come across a rotten lake, and after walking 3 more days, they will traverse desolate mountains and valleys. If they follow the directions as Stargazer intends, he promises to lead them to an endless forest. That place is filled with wild beasts and inhabited by many different species. Long story short, that forest is the best place for their current population to thrive. With Stargazer done with his speech, Ray respectfully sends the wanderer away before taking control of everyone's attention again. Standing tall over the altar, he shouts to Yuri, asking him why it's necessary to avoid killing every buffalo they hunt. Even though Yuri is a big guy, he clearly has stage fright and stutters while speaking. He claims that by preserving their catch and keeping it alive, they can use it when they're truly starving. Rocker, of course, publicly praises Yuri for his positive thinking. The fact that he suppressed his urges and instead of eating the buffalo right away, thought of their future. To further endorse the idea, Rocker rewards Yuri with an iron weapon. Everyone is shocked to see a weapon made out of iron. And Rack doesn't stop with Yuri. He also rewards those who resisted their appetites and preserved their hunt for later use. Seeing those being rewarded, the other lizard men begin craving such weapons for themselves. Well, it looks like Rack's strategy is working. This simple gesture encourages others to preserve food for better use, rather than giving in to their taste buds and instincts. Right then, Rack grabs one of the buffalo skulls and lowers it over his face like a sacred war mask. He summons the warriors to step forward. Yuri answers the call first, and Rack grants him a skull of his own. Those who bear the skulls upon their heads are consecrated as the skeleton warriors, fighters sworn to stand at Rack's side and carve their god's will into the world. They cannot linger in this holy ground any longer. Their god demands movement, demands obedience. They must depart at once and seek the next sanctuary that awaits them. As the first cracks of dusk split the sky, Rack invokes the name of their god, the nameless beetle god, commanding every warrior to carve that name into their very souls. The road ahead will be merciless, the trials unending, but they must endure. Just as they endured, resisting the temptation of devouring the water buffaloes. Their suffering is their offering. Their resolve is their worship. With their iron spears raised high, everyone vows to march forth. Rack stands beneath the dusk of a new day, a new journey, a new beginning. He begs his god for forgiveness for speaking so boldly, for using his name to motivate the others, for using the pretense of godly will to unify everyone. The said god watches everything unfold, and he isn't even slightly worried about Rack's actions. In fact, he feels proud to have Rack as his high priest. After all, Ray is truly having a positive impact on the people he leads, not only boosting morale, but also accelerating their growth. Yuri is a prime example, having leveled up accordingly. Even Rack has advanced his special stats. The results the high priest has produced haven't disappointed Nebula even once. But the real game begins now. The true trials for Rack lie ahead. Under the scorching heat, the entire Lizardmen Legion trudges through the wilderness. The heat is so unbearable that Manon even collapses. Right then, Rack decides to take a short break. As they rest, it gives them time to reflect on their current situation. They begin doubting whether they'll even reach the place they're hoping for after surviving this grueling desert. Even Rayrak wants to know what's happening since they've already been walking for 3 days. The entire group is exhausted, and to make matters worse, they are running dangerously low on resources, and relying on yet another miracle from their god is the last thing Rock wants. Right then, Yuri comes running with alarming news. They've sighted another species in the distance. They're orcs, totally hyped up and ready to loot the lizardmen they've spotted. But once they approach the full legion, the few orcs are stunned, sweat dripping down their faces. Just as the skeleton warriors prepare to smash some heads, the cunning orcs drop their stone weapons and surrender immediately. Before engaging in dialogue, the lizardmen offer the green guys some food to feast on. The orcs first express their gratitude, then begin explaining their situation. The reason they're wandering the wilderness is because their home was invaded by a monster. They used to live in the hills. It wasn't paradise, but it had enough resources to survive. But ever since a particular monster took over, they had no choice but to flee. The mention of a monster piques Nebula's curiosity. So he promptly scouts the area, only to find a massive centipede guarding some kind of square structure resting on its back. Turns out this creature is known as an abomination, and there are many types of abominations. This specific one is called the Ancient Caloptera. The worst part, this creature has triple D in every attribute, adding an additional 600 points to each one. Here's a little more about these abominations. In the storyline of the game Perished World, there exist creatures said to have been created by the now dead ancient gods. After the gods disappeared, these creatures were left wandering the planet with no one to guide them. Now, these beings are notorious as abominations. Their unique trait: they possess venomous fangs. Long story short, this is not something Nebula should be messing with, especially considering the current strength of his civilization. As the creature twists and writhes, the entire ground shakes, causing distress among the lizard men. However, the green orc calmly assures them that the creature is currently asleep, just sleepwalking. While they still have time, Rak begins weighing his options. According to the Wanderer, if they turn back into the wilderness and follow the mountain range, it will add 8 extra days to their journey. Wasting 8 days of supplies just to take a detour makes Rak hesitate. But fighting that monstrosity head-on also seems impossible, especially when his people are terrified. Rak hangs in the air, trapped in a dilemma. Meanwhile, Zale notices the high cliffs and the massive boulders resting at the edge. You can already guess what she's thinking. That's exactly why she suggests they fight rather than taking the long route. When Zale says fight, she knows what she is saying. After all, her intellectual stats are way higher than your everyday lizard man out here. She's already figured out how to use the landscape to their advantage. But for her plan to succeed, they must find an effective way to push the boulders off the cliffs with minimal effort. She recalls how the blacksmith once used a contraption, a bellows, to push more oxygen into the brazier for stronger flames. Similarly, they must figure out a method to push those giant boulders efficiently. After thinking it through, they manage to figure out a lever mechanism to push the boulders off the cliff. With combined effort, they finally succeed in moving the boulders into position. Nebula praises his civilization for coming up with such a simple yet effective method to deal with a monstrosity like this centipede. Still, to secure victory, they must drop all the boulders at once. Eventually, they push the first one, and it rolls down the cliff with deadly speed. The centipede notices far too late. The first boulder finds its mark, smashing into the monster, but it barely does anything. They've only managed to chip its skull, and that just enrages the beast. The monster begins climbing upward, charging toward the lizard men to obliterate whoever threw the boulders. The other group of skeleton soldiers is told to drop their next boulder, but they're struggling. It's already too late. Nebula has no choice but to step in himself. He descends into Rock's body and pushes the boulder with his own strength. With the second boulder on its way, Zale urges them to drop the third, but there's no time to set up the lever again. So the Gigachad lizard rak goes all out on his own, pushing the massive stone with pure, raw muscle. With his muscles bulging and veins popping, he shoves it off the cliff. Still, Nebula knows that even this might not be enough. That's when Rockrat grabs his spear and leaps off the cliff. He hurls the spear downward like a goddamn meteor, striking the centipede in a critical spot. The monster screeches in agony, and in that moment the falling boulder joins the chat, smashing straight into its skull. Then the final boulder crashes onto its face, crushing it completely. Rak lands back on solid ground, watching the monster fall. Back on his throne, Nebula finally exhales in relief. The system announces the successful subjugation of an abomination. This achievement increases Nebula's faith. Along with that, the system also rewards him with something new: Abomination Essence, something Nebula had long desired. As you know, Nebula can create resources specific to his civilization by spending faith points. But to create something that doesn't exist in the world at all, he needs special materials. That's where Abomination Essence shines. With it, Nebula can craft sacred beasts. Sacred beasts exist solely to spread their god's will across the world. They also have room to grow their stats, and raising them to higher levels grants them new classes, such as Apostle or Incarnation. For now, Nebula is looking forward to seeing what kind of sacred beast he'll be able to create. Cutting back to the lizard men, they refuse to let the monster's corpse go to waste. They plan to use it for sustenance, but the smell is absolutely foul. Zale tries taking a bite and realizes it tastes like literal garbage. To salvage the taste, they decide to add other stuff to make it at least edible, even if not a 5-star cuisine. Zale suggests adding some flavorful flora and roasting it over a fire. That way, they won't have to deal with the creature's rotten odor. They follow her idea, and when Rakra takes a bite, he's shocked. It's actually not that bad anymore. Z explains the technique known as cooking. She added scented grass and roasted the meat over fire. Seeing how impressive this new technique is, Rak insists on learning the skill for himself. As they continue eating, Zale mentions how the orc chief has an heir. This sparks an idea. Rak should probably find a mate, too. Bro's brain crashes instantly. Z remains completely serious, pointing out that they're getting older. It's only natural they need the next generation. As Rak sinks into deep contemplation, Zale expresses her willingness to be his mate. Just as he's about to respond, something shiny behind her catches his eye. It's some kind of ancient artifact. It was previously attached to the structure on the monster's back. Yuri, the goofball, tries to eat it, only to immediately realize it's not edible. The Wanderer reveals that this stuff is metal. Specifically, it's called gold. Zale also claims to have seen a similar metal before. The blacksmith had shown her various metals. If they polish it well, it reflects light and shines beautifully. Furthermore, it doesn't change color, nor does it decay over time. Among humans, this metal holds a lot of value. But for someone like Yuri, this piece of metal just sounds like a burden, heavy to carry and inedible. Speaking of which, the Wanderer suggests Yuri go hunt the deer that live around here. They're hoofed beasts with horns, and their meat is sweet and delicious. From what the orcs told them, there's supposed to be a herd of them somewhere nearby. Yuri perks up and heads out, while Rocker is still lost in his thoughts regarding this metal. Dusk descends a while later, and instead of indulging in the hunted deer resting in front of him, Rocker is still lost in thought. If gold supposedly doesn't decay, then what purpose did the creators of the tablet have in making something time couldn't wear down? This only makes him more curious about what the tablet is supposed to convey. Zoe returns with news that the entire lounge is ready to rest for the night. Rock is surprised that she found him even though he told no one about his whereabouts. Well, she spotted him because of the furred clothes he's wearing. Turns out it was her who suggested he wear them. Perfect for someone meant to play the role of chieftain. Night descends and the hunted deer in front of Rak begins to decompose. Yet he's still sitting there trying to figure out the purpose of this tablet. Suddenly, he notices the fireflies leaving trails of light, trying to form symbols. At first, Rak is astonished to see such bizarre illusions.
But whether their illusions are real doesn't matter. What matters is that the fireflies' movements resemble the markings on the tablet. It seems Rak has finally reached the epiphany he'd been searching for. This tablet was meant to represent something timeless, something that could never decay or be erased by time. And he has finally figured out what that thing is. He works all night deciphering the markings, and the dawn begins to break. He goes straight to Zale and wakes her up, wanting to show her what he has discovered. Let me spoil it for you. Bro has learned the concept of written language. He draws a symbol with a twig representing a male lizard man. Then he draws another symbol beside it to represent a female lizard man. After that, he draws an equal sign between the two symbols. Together, the symbols show that the male and female are companions to one another. And get this, Rak didn't draw this out of nowhere. He's actually using the symbols to tell her that he accepts her proposal and considers her his companion and mate. By now, Zale has learned enough of the language too. She draws a circle around the symbols and hopes Rak understands what that means. Well, it seems the chieftain knows exactly what it entails, and so do we. This is how Nebula's civilization discovered the concept of written language. It's honestly an achievement to be proud of, though it's going to take at least a few generations for it to evolve into a modern language. Anyway, now that Rock has chosen his mate, it's time for the wedding ceremony. For that, both the male and female must go out and hunt the biggest animal they can find and present it to their partner. And it looks like Zale has already outdone Rak with her catch. Anyway, Nebula is just relieved that he can now expect succession. We then cut back to the creature's corpse, which had already been dissected thoroughly. Currently, Rak is having a dialogue with the orc chief. The orc guy literally wells up in tears when Rak gives him the good news that the lizard men won't be occupying the place, meaning all the green guys can continue living as they were. The green guy sincerely thanks Rak. Not only did he kill that creature, but he was also benevolent enough to spare them their land. The overly grateful orc chief then introduces his son and assigns him as their guide since he knows the area like the back of his hand. According to the orcs, the land ahead has numerous large beasts and far bigger tribes living much closer to each other. Still, they're confident that a leader like Rak will easily overcome any obstacle in his path. As Rockarak and his crew scout this deep forest, they spot unusual footprints in the area. Once the Wanderer takes a closer look, he recognizes them as footprints of frogmen, creatures capable of walking on two legs. There are frogmen with good intentions, but not often. The fact that these creatures had been scouting this area only proves they have some hands-on experience of warfare reconnaissance. Judging by the total number of footprints, at least 5 frogmen scouted the place, meaning their tribe might have far greater numbers compared to the lizard men. After scouting, they return to their camp, and it's already nighttime. Most of the lizard men are ordered to scout different areas. This is the only way to create the illusion that they have superior numbers compared to what they actually have. Z also suggests increasing the number of lizard men on patrol and watchkeeping. A few days pass, and it seems their strategy worked. They didn't encounter any frogmen during their stay. Within those few days, Rack's tribe worked hard on their sustainability. They put emphasis on livestock farming, and the structural integrity of the houses they were building also improved exceptionally. Out of all these little achievements, the one that impressed Nebula the most was the speed at which the lizard men adapted to the concept of characters. Using the primitive maps they created and the new combination of characters paired with their existing hunting signs, the tribe quickly adopted the concept of written symbols. In addition to that, Rakra also made sure his tribe members recorded their harvests on a daily basis. This public record created a sense of competitiveness among the lizard men who wanted to outperform their peers. As for Nebula, his swarm of locusts is steadily growing in the center of the continent, and the insects from the nest to the south are also increasing in number. Thanks to that, his small dominion over insects has reached level 4. Just for context, Nebula previously had 3 swarms of insects, and he uses them to manipulate various environmental factors. Nebula feels very proud of the progress he's made so far. Under normal circumstances, no player would even dare push this much progress in such a short amount of time. It's all thanks to the terrain advantage Nebula had. The place he started from was an isolated region in the east, so he didn't encounter other players or major species during his early struggles. However, this is only the tip of the iceberg. There's far more ahead with dangers no one could even comprehend right now. Cutting back to Rakra, Yuri suddenly rushes in with concerning news that requires immediate attention. The frogmen are here. A while later, we finally meet the frogs for the dialogue. From our side, our upper echelon is also present to entertain these uninvited guests. Immediately, the first thing that catches Rakra's attention is the presence of a lizard man standing among the frogmen, something that makes no sense to him. Anyway, the top brass of the frogman introduces himself as Shunan, son of the great chief Oloi. First of all, he makes his intentions clear. They have no desire to engage in combat. Rock is surprised by the display of manners coming from Shunan. Respectfully, he introduces himself as well. Rocker, the chief of his tribe. The feeling is mutual. He also wishes not to point his weapon at anyone. With formalities out of the way, the frogman steps forward and reveals the purpose of their meeting. Turns out he is here to inform the lizard men that they have invaded frogman territory. Of course, Rack argues against it. How could all this land belong solely to the frogman tribe? Not to mention, there are no boundary markings anywhere that indicate frogman territory. That said, Rakra expresses no intention of invading another tribe's sovereignty, and he apologizes for it. However, he politely lets the Shunan know that they will be staying here for a while since they have nowhere else to go. Rack further takes control of the situation by flattering the son of Chief Alloy. Just a few kind words and Shunan willingly gives in to Rakra's stance. Then there are the 2 big guys standing behind Shunan quietly and without expression. This means they are only here to ensure that Shunan isn't doing something stupid. But as for that lizard man standing with the frogman, Rack still can't figure out his role. He's sure he'll learn soon enough. To do that, he sincerely invites the esteemed son of Chief Alloy to a feast. After all, 2 tribes just came to good terms without conflict, which is more than enough reason to hold a celebratory gathering. Shunan is about to accept the invitation, but quickly fumbles over his words when the big guy behind him whispers in his ear. He politely declines, reasoning that they have yet to build a relationship based on trust. Rack keeps insisting, claiming that sending a benefactor away without responding with kindness goes against the lizard men's code of conduct. At the very least, he wants Shunan to share a meal right here if he's uncomfortable entering the village. When the big guy behind Shunan gives an approving nod, the chief's son agrees. This is how Rack ends up sharing some sizzling meat with the chief's son. This is a perfect opportunity for him to learn about the relationship between the frogmen and the lizard man who accompanied them. However, Rock rins himself from asking such crucial details directly, as it may reveal how curious he is. So he decides to steer the conversation slowly. First, he asks a random question. What do the feathers around Shonen's neck symbolize? Turns out they're feathers of a cockatrice. Of course, Rak has no idea what kind of creature that is. Shonen doesn't realize he's being played and starts rattling off details. These birds are dangerous creatures living in the nearby forests. Appearance-wise, they walk on two legs and are massive in size. Aside from their sheer size, what makes them dangerous is that they are poisonous. They have quick reflexes, too. That's why the Frogman tribe often sends scouts all the way here to make sure no cockatrice is near enough to pose a threat. Since these birds sound like a massive pain to hunt, Rak wants to know what kind of weapon the Frogmen actually use. Perhaps javelins. But to Shunin, javelins are inferior and useless. He calls out to his pale white lizard man companion and orders him to fetch a bow and arrows, a type of weapon Rak has never even heard of before. A while later, the pale white lizard man brings the weapon Shunan requested. Next, he's tasked with setting up a wooden plank against a tree as a target. Once that's done, Shunan releases his first arrow, and it lands perfectly on the mark. Rock praises both the weapon and its user for such impressive accuracy. Shun claims he doesn't want to brag, but he claims to be one of the best archers in his tribe. They've been learning to wield this weapon since childhood. Damn, this green guy is literally starving for validation. He gets flattered every time Rak praises him. Up next, when our chief expresses his desire to try the weapon, the frogmen hand it over happily. Rak fiddles around with it for a while, trying to figure out the proper way to hold and use it. While doing so, he can clearly tell this weapon is far superior compared to javelins. It's easy to carry a lot of arrows, and both its speed and accuracy are insane. Rak attempts several shots, but none of them manage to reach the target. Shunin then orders his lizard man companion, whose name is Owen, by the way, to fetch the arrows. As Owen dashes forward to collect them, Ray insists on picking them up himself since he was the one who fired them. Of course, that's just a pretense to get closer to Owen away from earshot. As Ray crouches down near Owen, the first thing he notices is how shaken this guy looks. When the chieftain questions this young lizard man on why he's hanging around with Frogman, Owen responds hesitantly. He claims that both the lizard man and frogman tribes actually live together. And why they're together? Well, according to him, both tribes benefit from the arrangement. Of course, that sounds completely unbelievable to Rak, but Owen doubles down, happily insisting that both tribes live in harmony. Naturally, Rak is curious how this symbiotic relationship even works. According to Owen, the frogmen provide protection while the lizard men take care of menial tasks. Furthermore, frogmen can dive deep and explore underwater areas, while lizard men are better at picking fruits and climbing trees. They basically exchange resources that the other tribe can't obtain themselves, making life easier for both groups. However, Rak believes lizard men don't need anyone's protection since they're fully capable of defending themselves. But Owen reminds the chieftain about how dangerous this forest truly is. Only Aloy's tribe, supposedly the largest tribe in the forest, can handle it. The situation for the lizard men was so miserable that even basic survival wasn't guaranteed without the frogman's help. For now, Rak decides to stop questioning him, since he has already obtained the answers he wanted. He sternly orders Owen to act as if this conversation never happened. A while later, the lizard men prepare some steamed deer ribs for their esteemed guest, Shunan. The moment he takes the first bite, his face lights up like a kid in a candy store. He's had deer before, but never one seasoned with herbs. The guy is completely sold. And to hammer the nail deeper, Rak further tempts him with the mention of buffalo meat. Naturally, Shunan perks up again. After all, it's not every day they get to eat buffalo. It's been ages since he last had it, and even then it was a stale piece he had. But now he can have tender, fresh buffalo meat if he joins Rak in the camp since they have one there. But then his big, muscular buddy starts throwing deadly glares, leaving poor Shunan no choice but to decline under that harsh pressure. Rak, being just as sassy, tries to rub Shunan's FOMO even harder. Shunan insists he will visit the camp, but only after they've built more trust in their relationship. Luckily, Aloy's tribe members aren't hostile toward lizard men, and Owen and the other lizard men living with frogmen are living proof of that. Shunan calls Owen over and asks him to explain to Rak how their tribes have been helping each other ever since they started living together. Of course, Owen begins narrating the script he's clearly been taught by his masters, and Ray sees through all of it. He can tell every word coming out of Owen's mouth is rehearsed, prepared for this exact moment. With dusk starting to cast its yellow hue, Shunan decides to be on his way. He definitely enjoyed the company, and is genuinely grateful. When Rock insists he visit their village next time, Shunin politely declines as expected. The representatives of both tribes wave at each other before parting ways. It's then we notice Shunin getting extremely harsh with Owen.
a detail Rack's eyes don't miss. He can tell these lizard men aren't on good terms with the frogmen at all. Once Shunan gets back to his village, he and his men start beating the out of Owen. Turns out Shunan realized Owen had spoken to the lizardmen chief earlier and demands he spill everything he talked about. The poor lizard man fumbles over his words as he tries to lie, claiming he only guided the chieftain on how to become a better bowman. Well, that pathetic excuse just earns him more beating because he can't even shoot an arrow himself. So how the hell was he tutoring that chieftain? But Owen doubles down, insisting that if he had told the truth to the chieftain, that guy would have become suspicious. That's why Owen demanded some sort of payment if the chief wanted shooting lessons. In response, the chieftain said he didn't possess anything valuable to pay with. Eventually, Shunan buys the story and even starts holding Owen in high regard for such impressive bargaining skills. Since Owen did such an excellent job, Shunan promises to spare his offspring who was scheduled for sacrifice today. You see, these bastards have a bunch of lizard men captive, all intended to be sacrificed. That's exactly why Owen is willing to obey every command Shunan gives. He's prepared to fool Rack and his tribe with everything he's got. Later that night, Owen sits at the edge of the pond, reflecting on the terrible decisions that led him here. He regrets not seeing the true colors of these frogmen earlier. They lured them in while pretending to be benevolent. By now, the major chunk of lizard men who lived here have already been sacrificed. The remaining 200 or so don't dare revolt against 1,500 frogmen. Not only do the frogmen have superior numbers, they also have a supposedly divine creature they call a god, a terrifying two-headed fiend that can devour anything with a single swipe. That being is the only thing ruling over the frogmen, and by extension, it's ruling over the lizard men. Owen is certain that the black-scaled lizard man chieftain he met is indeed a powerful individual, but even then, his tribe has only about 600 members and can't wield any weapons, so Owen plans to lure them here and have them sacrificed first. That way, his own people get a little more time to live. He'll do anything to prolong his son's life, even if it means luring the other tribe into this trap. The next day arrives, and Yuri is out here flexing this water buffalo, making Shunan go absolutely bananas. Rack doesn't waste the moment to brag about it either. Now that Shunan has seen the buffalo with his own eyes, Rockrank wants to trade it for the weapon called a bow. That's when Owen steps in, insisting they should visit each other's villages before any major trade happens. It's only fair they get acquainted first. In fact, Owen promises to gift the bow afterward as a gesture of goodwill. Many days pass like this. Rack and Zale are testing the bow they replicated themselves, but for some reason their prototype isn't able to fire the arrow far. Rack is convinced it's the bowstring, but they still haven't figured out which creature's tendons should be used for it. We then learn that the next meeting with the frogmen will be the 5th one, and it's right around the corner. Those guys are extremely eager to learn more about their tribe. Although their curiosity feels suspicious to Ray, he's certain they're hiding something vicious under the pretext of friendship. The problem is he can't quite put his finger on what they're plotting. I guess it's finally time to put Owen to use. This will also help Owen prove his worth and loyalty. We cut back to the frogman. They're busy choking that poor guy again. They're frustrated that they've made no progress getting closer to the tribe, even though they followed Owen's guidance. Owen admits the black-skilled chieftain is far more cunning and cautious than he expected. But whatever the case, Shunan wants Owen to speed things up. Chief Alloy has given them a deadline to bring the sacrifices, and they can't afford to miss it. Owen insists on knowing why the deadline is so strict. In his mind, he's certain these guys are hiding something crucial, something he needs to know. So he questions Shunan about it. Shunan explains that his father and the elders are getting sicker, so delaying the sacrificial ritual isn't an option. A disease is spreading that causes extreme itchiness, and the symptoms only get worse. While Shunan admits no lizard man should know about this, he considers Owen an exception. He stresses how dangerous the disease is. If any frog man is afflicted, their skin not only itches, but becomes coated with a sticky white layer of mucus. This layer is impossible to rub off, and it constantly expands. At a certain point, the mucus makes it impossible to breathe properly, eventually suffocating the victim. As of now, a priest has already died from it. Owen is utterly surprised that Shunan bothered to spill such classified details to a lizard man. The only explanation he can think of is that Shunan is putting him through some sort of test, so he masks his emotions and promises never to spread this information among the lizard men. After all, if they learn something this crucial, they'll realize the frogmen are actually quite weak, and that would spark a revolt. Still, it's not like they can keep this secret hidden forever. So, as a precautionary measure, Owen suggests spreading rumors that the illness is also contagious to lizard men.
To make the story believable, he adds that grasses and other plants exist that produce a white foam when crushed, something they can use to imitate the mucus. Owen volunteers to act as the first infected patient. With that settled, Shunan is once again proud of the impressive strategic plans Owen always comes up with, though he also wants him to use that same cleverness to lure all those black lizard men here. Only then will he exclude Owen's son from the sacrifice. Of course, the cornered lizard man is more than grateful for such benevolence. As Shunan starts leaving after laying down all the details, Owen stops him and requests a batch of bows to use against the black-scaled lizard men. But it's clear Shunan isn't willing to hand over his precious weapons so easily. The next day arrives, and the frogmen have brought quite a lot of stuff for the lizard men as gifts. It looks like Rak has brought a massive stack of herbs that help with itching. He's hoping this huge stockpile will be enough to exchange for at least one bow. As expected, Shunan declines the offer. To him, more than anything, trust is what matters when it comes to trading weapons. For obvious reasons, Rak has grown tired of hearing this broken tape loop the same excuse over and over. Finally, he agrees to improve the mutual trust between both tribes, just like the great son of Alloy desires. But first, he intends to have a private chat with Owen. Eventually, Owen and the chieftain walk out of everyone's earshot. Owen begins narrating the same old scripted. He recalls how the other gray and brown scaled lizard men had a brotherly ritual with the frogmen tribe before their tribes merged. The ritual basically requires spending time rigorously studying each other. That's why it's imperative for Rakra to tell everything about his tribe. Only then will Owen share all the information about the frogman. It's about time they stop being so wary and actually make an effort to get closer. Right then, the familiar blue butterflies join the scene, one even landing on Owen. Rock immediately picks up on what his god is trying to tell him. He wholeheartedly agrees with Owen. It is indeed time to stop being so wary of each other. Rock is willing to tell Owen everything he wants to know. A while later, Shunan and his crew return to their village. This time, Shunan is absolutely ecstatic to realize they've managed to gather a ton of information about those black-skilled lizard men. What excites him most is that they finally convinced those fools to visit their village. Even better, those supposed fools voluntarily showed Shunan around their own village. Now the frogmen know exactly where the lizard man village is located and how many numbers they possess. Shunan doesn't hesitate before giving all the credit to Owen, who helped them gain the upper hand over the tribe. Owen is flattered to hear it, though he hesitantly reminds Shunan of the promise he made. Of course, that cunning toad remembers the promise all too well, though I highly doubt he plans on honoring it. Dust creeps in, and as usual, Owen sits near the pond, excited at the thought of living with his child again like they used to. As for Rakra in his village, Owen believes the chieftain's own ignorance is what will eventually lead to his downfall. To learn exactly what conversation they had, we cut a little back in time. Rock is trying to familiarize Owen with the concept of characters and symbols. He draws certain symbols with a twig and explains their meanings. The cross means decline, and the other character represents lie. Owen, being sharp-minded, quickly picks up on it. Not only that, he also puts both characters together, forming an entirely new sentence. For example, putting the character for lie next to the cross forms the phrase no lie, which represents truth. Rakra is thoroughly impressed by how quickly he learned it. Even he never thought of using these characters this way. All these flattering words remind Owen of Shunan, who also praises him for his sharp mind. Still, Owen is curious why Rakara is specifically teaching him symbols when they never mention such things in the meetings with the frogmen. It's as if Rakra is reading his mind. He explains that the only reason he's teaching this is because he wants to build trust. He doesn't want to build trust with the frogmen, but with Owen himself. Rak already knows the things he's been told about the frogmen aren't true, and there are many stories Owen simply isn't allowed to share. Rak and his people have seen pain. That's exactly why they've learned to recognize it in others. He can easily differentiate predator from prey, and he's already recognized that Owen and his people are the prey. Rak can see and smell the pain carved across Owen's face. Despite that, the young lizard man keeps denying everything, but the chieftain knows all too well. Returning from the flashback, Owen reflects on his situation. He knows the chieftain of the black-scaled tribe is confident and strong, but he doesn't stand a chance against frogmen weapons. Rak's claim about taking down an abominable creature sounds ridiculous to Owen, especially when they don't even have special weapons. Furthermore, Chief Rock must be incredibly foolish to give him knowledge of their symbols. Owen feels he isn't worthy of the chieftain's trust. He considers himself nothing more than a bargainer, someone only concerned about his own gains. The next day arrives, and Rak finally pays a visit to the Frogman's village. Seeing them, Shunan welcomes his new friends with open arms. Once the pleasantries are done, Ray apologizes for arriving fully equipped. He feared they might encounter a cockatrice along the way, and didn't want to risk it. Of course, Shunan has no objections. In his mind, he thinks these lizard men are stupid for believing their primitive spears could ever stand a chance against a cockatrice. Besides, Shunan doesn't intend to fight the lizard men at all. He plans to poison the food during their feast. Rak then starts glancing around looking for Owen. Shunan explains he's busy preparing for the banquet. They eventually spot him arranging seats for their guests. Shunan notices him scribbling something on the ground with a twig. He doesn't suspect a thing and thinks Owen is probably marking where each guest is supposed to sit. He gestures for Rak to go greet Owen himself. As for Shunan, he's going to check on the food preparations. Once Rak approaches, Owen points to the markings he's been carving, pretending they indicate where the lizard men are supposed to sit, but the symbol he's drawn is the one that means lie. Rak immediately understands what they are supposed to do. He signals to Yuri to get things started. And just like that, the real banquet begins. Yuri plants his feet, takes his stance, and chucks the spear with all his strength, killing one armed frogman instantly. Rak then orders his warriors to obliterate the frogman, initiating this one-sided massacre. A while passes, and Rak's crew clears the whole area without sustaining a single casualty. Most frogmen have already fled, including Shunan. Next, they must prepare to fight the bowmen. For that, Rak can only hope their backup plan works. He quickly turns to Owen and gives him a crucial task, one he cannot fail. Cutting to the frogman, Shunan is grinding his teeth in fury if he has any. He's certain this is all Owen's doing. He orders his henchmen to gather every warrior in the village. They must attack the lizard men immediately. As for the gray captive lizard men, their job is to hold off Rak's group until the frogmen warriors are ready. Soon the frogmen unleash a barrage of arrows aimed directly at the lizard men. But Rak had already planned for this. Their backup plan was shields. All the lizard men raise their shields, blocking the incoming arrows. Those weak sticks bounce right off as soon as they hit. Yuri is ecstatic seeing these things actually work against arrows. Meanwhile, Shunan quickly adjusts the strategy. He orders the frogman to fire only when the lizard men advance, but that plan also collapses as a thick blanket of smoke begins swallowing the entire area, ruining everyone's visibility. No one can aim properly anymore. And the one spreading the smoke, well, it's Owen who has set the frogman's abodus on fire. His fellow lizard men stare in disbelief, watching him commit such a bold act. For a moment, they think it must be on Shunan's orders. But Owen reveals the truth. He's acting under orders from the black-skilled chieftain. He begs his friends to trust him, just this once, assuring them that Rak will crush the frogman. Eventually, his comrades pick up their own torches and start burning everything around them. By the time Shunan realizes the settlement is on fire, it's already too late. For now, he decides they must retreat, especially since the lizard men under their command have already betrayed them. They plan to rejoin the battle later when their trump card, warrior Oboy, arrives, but Shunan still doubts whether they can turn the tide. He doesn't doubt Oboy's strength. He's worried they might need more than just a strong warrior. He then considers taking aid from the fiend living in the waters. Meanwhile, Warrior Oboy receives word that Shunan is retreating to the lower village. The 10 warriors stationed at the banquet hall and the 5 warriors sent to investigate have all been massacred. Oboy counts the 5 warriors on the island and the 10 beside him. Counting everyone, they have 45 warriors in total. That number gives him confidence. They still have the advantage. One frogman takes out a spear, laces it in poisonous frog mucus, and prepares to shoot. But suddenly the ground trembles. A cold tension grips Warrior. Oh boy. The feeling in his chest is the same one he had the day he faced the cockatrice. He can tell something catastrophic is coming. Eventually, they unleash their barrage of arrows, but their attack is rendered useless against Drake Manon. His massive presence alone makes the frogman shudder in fear. The one riding the beast is Zale. She notices how big Manon has grown since the last time she rode him. What's even more comical is the fact that the arrows, supposedly the enemy's ultimate weapons, are literally serving as side snacks for Manon. You see, Manon eats anything that comes close to his mouth. He roars viciously, ready to devour even more food, and these frogmen are about to become his buffet. Oh boy finds himself in a serious pickle since their ultimate weapon has completely failed them.
Even if he tries shooting at Manoon's vulnerable parts, the creature is simply too fast for him to take proper aim. Eventually, Manoon lunges forward and crushes one of the frogmen with the sheer strength of his jaws. At this point, Oh Boy is certain this monster isn't something they can mess with. Since nothing is going to work against this all-round predator, Oh Boy decides to use the creature's own strength against it. He tosses the poisonous toad right at Manon, and just as expected, Manon devours it instantly. The other frogmen also begin throwing their poisonous toads toward him, and Manon is literally catching every single one with his mouth left and right, making sure no delightful dessert goes to waste. Meanwhile, Zale finds it strange that the enemy is throwing literal snacks at Manhwa. Under Nebula's blessings, specifically one of the 3 blessings, they have resistance against toxins. Once again, Oh Boy realizes far too late that they've royally screwed up. Manon pleasantly smiles at his next snack before yanking Oh Boy's head off his body. We then cut back to the place that had been set ablaze. One of the frogmen tries to snipe Rack with a poisonous arrow, but the Chad lizard simply tears through the incoming arrow with a strike of his tail. Yuri then smashes the sniper's head, causing the brain bits to splatter. With the last warrior taken care of, no enemies remain. Shunin has already abandoned the village and has gone to the inner village located in the island in the middle of the river. Since the frogman has been crushed mercilessly, the grayish-brown lizard men have also begun attacking the frogmen. Seeing all the destruction and the overwhelming damage the frogmen have taken, Rack starts wondering why their leader Alloy hasn't shown up yet. Well, turns out Nebula has already taken care of Alloy off-screen. There's a virus with a ridiculously long name that I can't even pronounce. The only thing that matters is that the illness caused by this virus is extremely fatal. By the time Rakara decided to leave the Holy Land, Nebula had located a disease hundreds of kilometers away. Using insects, he transported that disease all the way here. Once the great frogman leader Alloy became infected, he was no longer the powerful figure he was revered to be. The idiot, on the brink of death, held countless ceremonies where he sacrificed poor lizardmen children, offering them to that 2-headed fiend. He believed this was the only way his illness could be cured. Cutting back to Rack and his crew, they've successfully wiped out the frogmen in the area. That's when Owen comes running to him. He desperately begs Rack to cross the lake immediately and reach the island in the middle. There are young lizardmen about to be sacrificed to that 2-headed fiend. But as grim as this sounds, Rakra points out that Owen is telling him all this way too late. They can't cross the lake now because the frogmen have already sailed off toward the island with their boats. Trying to reach it by swimming would be pure suicide. In the water, they'd be nothing but practice dummies for frogman archers. Owen sinks into utter despair. With clasped hands and eyes full of sorrow and desperation, he begs Rack to do something. His son is captured there. Hearing the mention of his son, Rocker goes absolutely ballistic and smacks Owen across the face. He yells at this brain-dead-ad fool for not telling him earlier. He's utterly disappointed that Owen never trusted him to begin with. If they had known from the start, Rocker is certain he would have already been prepared to take down that so-called god. Now, thanks to Owen, his son is likely headed toward an unnecessary demise. Even Owen begins regretting his decisions now. And just as everything seems too late, the 2-headed fiend finally responds to the frogman's ceremony. The fiend arrives to claim the offerings. The frogmen chant their god's name with full devotion, begging him to accept their sacrifices. Alloy further pleads for his god to destroy the black-scaled lizardmen threatening the lake. Meanwhile, Owen sits at the edge of the lake, helpless, able to do nothing but watch. As for Rack and Zale, they're busy sizing up the abomination. First thing to note is that the creature is slightly bigger than the Kalopra they defeated with boulders. There's a chance they can defeat it, but the odds are severely against them, especially since the terrain now puts them at a huge disadvantage. Casualties would be inevitable. Right then, Rock receives a signal from his god, and from this point onward, everything changes. Rack orders Owen to look ahead. Look ahead and tell him if he doesn't believe in miracles. Standing before them is a massive praying mantis, a literal miracle of God. Cutting back to the idiotic frog leader worshipping this 2-headed freak, he continues begging the fiend to take these lizard men as sacrifice. But it's clear the fiend's attention has been stolen by something else. When Aloy looks around to see what caught the fiend's eye, he sees the massive mantis. The only word that forms in the terrified frogman's minds after witnessing the mantis is God. This creature is a literal god. Nebula created this being using the essence of an abomination. Other factors like his Dominion level 4, Divinity level, and the amount of faith he has also played major roles. Without these, he wouldn't have been granted the ability to create a sacred beast. Nebula is sure not many players possess a sacred creature already. Meanwhile, the two-headed fiend lunges at the mantis to take a bite, but the mantis grabs the bastard's jaw with a bare hand. The monster thrashes and struggles to escape the mantis's grip. As he's being shoved around, several frogmen are crushed under the fiend's massive body. The second head lunges, but the mantis shows no mercy and slices it clean off, spraying blood everywhere. The creature once worshipped as god has now been taught a brutal lesson. He's nothing more than a disgusting rat. The mantis then decides to offer this lowly creature to its almighty creator. With a single jolt, the mantis tears the head off the monster's body, finally freeing this ignorant beast from its pathetic existence. With the two-headed fiend dead, the mantis stands tall, reveling in victory. The lizard men erupt in celebration, while Owen can barely hold back his tears. Got to admit, the mantis's entrance was pure hype. Even Nebula thinks so. Despite the fiend's impressive stats, it never even got the chance to use its small dominion. And as we know, the defeat of the two-headed fiend rewards Nebula with its essence. A new notification allows him to claim the small dominion, though it's unknown at first. Only after claiming it does Nebula learn the dominion is seawater. Now it makes sense why the monster didn't use it. There's only fresh and sweet water here, so the seawater dominion would have been useless. Honestly, dominion over rivers would have been way better since even Nebula can't utilize seawater here. Still, he's sure it'll come in handy someday. We then transition back to Chief Alloy, who is in utter disbelief seeing their god fall with such ease. Seeing his father in such dismay, his son Shunan finally begins to understand the real reason behind the frogman's downfall. As far as he can tell, his father and his tribe didn't lose their strength because of the disease. It's because they were too devoted and reliant on that two-headed fiend. The entire tribe let their guard down. They stopped training, believing that the two-headed god would keep them safe forever. Now the frogmen are nothing more than cowards, powerless to stand against their enemies. The great mantis delivers the good news to his creator about the abomination's annihilation. Nebula feels proud of his creation and grants him the chance to rest until he is summoned again. The great mantis is prepared to emerge whenever the time comes, and his involvement becomes imperative. Meanwhile, Rocker and his crew notice the frogmen crossing the river to reach the outer village. The village has been abandoned, giving Rockrak the opportunity to swim across and rescue those lizard men. With his voice raised high and a tone dripping with dominance, Rock addresses the captives of the village. Today he is here to claim victory over the frogmen. If there is anyone with the courage to join him in this endeavor, they can step forward. Owen immediately volunteers, ready to help him secure this victory. The other injured lizard men also gather their courage and insist on joining as well, finally acknowledging Rak as their chieftain. But Rak insists that the injured stay behind and rest. One brave lizard man proclaims himself a former warrior who knows exactly when to rest while facing danger. Although none of them feel any honor in exterminating Frogman civilians, their hearts have been reignited with a fire to fight for themselves and reclaim their freedom. What sparked this fire is Rak and his people's resolve, their refusal to fear Frogman warriors. Rak can tell the real fuel behind their energy is pure hatred and anger toward the Frogmen. The former warrior admits it without hesitation. It's finally time to let this burning hatred out, just so the fire in their hearts can be extinguished. They have lost their companions, their children, their grandchildren. Unless they return these wrongdoings back to the Frogmen, they will never find peace. And honestly, that's exactly what Rak wants them to do. He once again raises his voice, letting it crack through the air as he charges everyone with determination. Determination to seek vengeance against those who inflicted sorrow. Before we move further in the story, we cut a little back into the past. It's around the time when Shunan helped Rak use a bow. Given how fast Rak was learning, Shunan was sure he'd soon be on par with Frogman warriors. Currently, Rak's biggest drawback is that he takes way too long to shoot an arrow. To that, Rak argued that hitting crucial points of the target is better than hitting non-crucial parts. That's when Shunan explains that real targets in real battles are always moving. So, it's essential to shoot as quickly as possible without missing. Folks, keep that little detail in mind. It's going to come in handy soon in the story. After sharing a bit more knowledge about the weapon, Shunan also promised to teach Rak how to make a bow himself, but only when their bond becomes stronger. He assured him that the materials needed for the bows are easily accessible to lizard men as well. Back then,
Rak felt a strange, ominous feeling when Shunan mentioned the materials being easily accessible. It was a morbid feeling, one he will eventually understand directly from Shunan's own mouth. I have a strong hunch why Rakra felt that ghastly chill, but I won't spoil the thrill. Right now he's swimming toward the island with the other warriors. Once they reach the shore, the gray-scaled lizard men pounce toward their loved ones. Owen hugs his son Ian as tightly and passionately as he can. Rak then tasks Yuri with helping the kids evacuate the area. He orders the gray and brown scaled lizard men to move to the back of the outer village and confuse the frogmen. From what Yuri can interpret, they are about to launch an attack and pinch the enemy from two sides. Rak confirms this much. Once the enemy's attention is fully drawn to the front of the village, he plans to cross the lake and strike from there. Although Yuri feels concerned for his chieftain, Rak reassures him that he'll be fine, especially since the enemy no longer has the numbers they once did. Not to mention, the lizard men have just received yet another blessing from their god. Their black scales now shimmer like rippling waves sparkling under the moonlight. Cutting to the frogman village. Everyone is running around in panic, trying to evacuate because the enemy has arrived. Right at that moment, Rak and his crew crash the party from the opposite side of the village. Yuri and his fellows were already wreaking havoc, and Rak joins them without missing a beat. The great chieftain of the frogmen begs desperately for the two-headed fiend to manifest and rescue him from this catastrophe. After all the sacrifices he made for that two-headed god, this is the least he deserves. Rak shuts the bastard's yap with a single spear piercing through his head, killing him instantly. The one-sided massacre continues, swallowing up every last frogman. Right now, the lizard men can be heard shouting and looking for Shunan. The man in question is hiding inside a shack. He's in utter shock. How could the frogman lose despite having superior numbers and advanced weapons? He is eventually found by Rockrak, who creeps up right behind him. Realizing someone's behind him, Shunan is stunned in fear and falls to the floor. Rayrak commands him to get on his feet and grab his weapon. He's willing to give Shunan a chance to protect his honor as a warrior and die fighting like one. But Shunan is a coward. To him, honor means nothing in the face of death. He immediately starts begging to be spared for the sake of the time they had spent together. He even offers to reveal the secret behind the materials used to craft their bows. In fact, he is more than willing to expose the living beings they used to extract the tendons for the bowstrings. With a trembling voice, he confesses that those tendons came from lizard men. Shunan realizes too late that he has only worsened his situation by revealing such morbid information. Rak acknowledges Shunan's confession, and surprisingly he accepts the deal and decides to let Shunan walk away alive. After all, Rak holds no personal grudge against him. With that, he sternly orders Shunan to run. The frogman takes the cue and bolts toward the forest. But the only reason Rak let him go is because he wanted a moving target to test his aim. The next day arrives and we find a frogman's corpse tied to a tree, acting as the perfect target dummy for the lizardmen chief. Rak is testing the new bows they crafted, each fitted with the custom bowstrings they managed to create themselves. The only problem they currently face is the limited resilience of the strings. If they pull just a little too hard, they snap. Owen admits there simply aren't any stronger materials than what they are using right now. Rak knows this well, and that's exactly why he isn't planning to stay here forever. Winter is coming, and to feed the buffaloes they're raising, they must relocate to a much warmer place. Since Owen is wearing his warrior mask, Rak assumes he must have gone hunting today as well. Owen confirms it, proudly stating that he exterminated all the remaining frogmen in the area. For now, they won't have to worry about having enough material for bowstrings, at least for a while. We then get a glimpse of the past when Shunan got struck in the foot, causing him to stumble. The gray lizard men were hyped to kill this bastard right then and there. And the one who took this responsibility was Owen, determined to kill that filthy toad with his own hands. Alloy, the chief of the Frogman tribe, met the same end as his son. By now, his bones are likely adorning someone else's head, just like Shunan's bones now decorate Owen's. Just as Owen is about to explain a crucial detail, Zale arrives and spots a kid trying to sneak behind a tree. She purposely startles the kid and asks if he's here to talk to the chief. That's when Zale notices a small wooden statue the kid drops. When the statue is shown to Rock, he immediately recognizes it as their guardian. They're actually surprised that such a young kid crafted something so meticulous and detailed. The child perks up in happiness after receiving praise and admits he was on his way to gift it to Chief Rak. Zale adds that kids in the village often make such figures for each other and every child has one.
The kid proudly explains that his figurine represents their guardian, a massive being who saved them from the two-headed fiend back then. Rocker likes the idea of having figures of a guardian. If everyone possesses one, it will make them feel safer and more confident, so he suggests everyone have one. Returning to their original conversation, Ray asks Owen what he was talking about earlier. The gray lizard reveals they discovered something strange inside the cave the frogmen were hiding in. He then eventually leads everyone to that tunnel. Once they reach the cave, they venture inside without hesitation. All the frogmen who came here had been killed, meaning no one else knows about this place for now. They suddenly stumble upon a massive stone wheel covered in intricate patterns. It's insane to think someone carved such hard stone with pinpoint accuracy. What's even more shocking is that the markings on this boulder resemble the same colopter creature they previously crushed with boulders. Seems like even Nebula isn't sure what that is. From the first glance, he can only guess they've stumbled across some sort of ancient ruin. In the perished world, you'll find all kinds of ancient ruins. Each ruin contains its own unique knowledge or treasures. If they end up finding treasure, they might even discover items with extraordinary abilities or items with terrifying demonic properties. But in this era, where civilization is still stuck in its primal stages, obtaining ancient knowledge isn't as fruitful as it sounds, since primitive hobos can't even tell what in the bunga this thing is supposed to be. Furthermore, ruins that create or change special materials or grant blessings only work within their native region. And to Lakrak, who lives a nomadic lifestyle that makes them utterly useless. There's a small chance this might be a unique relic, though Nebula hopes it isn't anything demonic. Otherwise, they're screwed. Just as they slide past that giant slab, they hear spiraling electricity humming like it's trying to communicate with them. An unknown entity welcomes the strangers who dared to enter the demonic world. Upon stepping inside, the lizard men find themselves navigating a maze of stairways, spiraling downward. Instead of taking these confusing stairs, Rocker suggests simply jumping down. Before they descend further, they notice a bunch of rats blocking their path. But the way these creatures snarl doesn't seem like normal rats at all. Zale confirms that they're nutria. They've eaten nutria before, but these ones look drastically different, simply because they've grown much larger. Another thing to note is that nutria don't normally travel in groups, nor are they aggressive. Perhaps they're trying to protect this place. Because of this, Rakra orders his soldiers to get ready for a fight. The overgrown rats start pouncing toward their supposed enemies, only to get impaled by spears and die needlessly. After dealing with them, Rock feels bad seeing so much meat go to waste and suggests they try eating them. Zale even suggests taming these giant rats and farming them like buffaloes. Speaking of farming, Owen suggests fish farming might be even better. Fish are easy to raise since they lay eggs and take care of their own hatchlings. They could easily build a dam and trap the fish during hatching season. Suddenly, one of the lizard men gets electrocuted just by touching an injured nutria. Rocker tries touching it too and gets zapped as well. Turns out these nutria are infused with a demonic energy attribute known as lightning. They can strike enemies with lightning through physical contact. Well, it looks like Nebula's worst-case scenario has become reality. This is indeed a demonic ruin, though the lightning attribute is considered relatively weak compared to the others. If Rak manages to reach the end of this ancient ruin, he can obtain this demonic power, though simply obtaining it won't make him a mage instantly. Demonic power strengthens with each generation, meaning future descendants would become true mages. There's another issue. In the perished world, magic and divine power are in conflict. According to the game's original story, the source of magic doesn't come from a god, but from an ancient evil. Thus, Heil magicians don't rely on gods at all. They aim to build their own power. As more people get influenced by magicians and pursue the magic path, many lose their faith in gods. This drop in faith deters players from choosing the path of magic. There is a loophole players can exploit, but it introduces way too many complications. Anyway, we cut back to Rakra, because now is the moment when the demonic relic begins tempting its target. The demonic entity emerges, speaking to Rakra through telepathy. It asks Rock whether he desires this power. If so, the entity is willing to give it to him. Since others can't see the demonic figure, Zell notices Rak zoning out and suggests they return. But Rayrak says he's fine and orders his companions to keep obliterating the rats. By now, Rak realizes he's the only one who can see this creature. Through telepathy, Rocker asks the first question anyone would: its identity. The creature introduces itself as the spirit that guards this place. Only those with great power can perceive it. Naturally, Rocker questions what power it's referring to. He also notices that although they can communicate without words, they can't read each other's deeper thoughts. Meanwhile, Nebula considers warning Rack about this spirit of demonic magic, but he stops when he notices a new attribute in Rack's profile. The attribute is called Deception. Nebula has no clue when it was added. The closest guess is that Rack earned it while dealing with Shunin's deceitful tactics. This gives Nebula a tiny bit of reassurance, and he decides to leave the decision entirely to Rack. Back with the entity, it reveals a bit about the electricity attribute, the power to burn all life with scorching heat, shining like the blazing sun. Rack can have this power if he wishes. Naturally, he sees no reason to decline. This is when the spirit tries introducing a stipulation. To avoid being tricked, Rack immediately declines the offer. After all, it's not free. The spirit quickly tries to salvage the negotiation, insisting the condition isn't difficult to fulfill. Once again, Rack expresses disappointment. If the spirit wanted an exchange, it should have said so from the beginning. Still, he agrees to hear the condition, but warns the spirit not to beat around the bush anymore. He wants everything stated clearly. If it hides anything, there will be no more dialogue. Right then, Zale interrupts to report that they're ready to move. Rack orders her to continue with the others. He'll follow after gathering his thoughts. Meanwhile, the spirit lays out its terms. It claims it has been sealed in this ruin and cannot move freely. It wants Rock to descend further and kill the ruin guard protecting the seal. Once freed, it promises to grant all its powers. Before accepting the deal, Rack wants confirmation. Will he gain the same power to zap enemies like those rats? The spirit doubles down. As it said before, its power is called electricity. For now, it only manifests as crackling sparks, but with each use, it grows stronger. Eventually, Rack would even be able to summon lightning. Given the growth potential, Rack could become powerful enough to rival a god. This power is actually too immense for one person alone. So, Rack has the option to share it with the tribe, or he could monopolize it entirely for himself through a ritual. Rack acknowledges everything the spirit explained, but he still can't understand one thing. How did a being capable of granting such overwhelming power end up sealed? Well, according to the spirit, it was that very power that led to its downfall. People usually interpret strength as a threat, and they typically lock down anything they fear. Rack finds it ironic that the spirit openly admits it's in fact dangerous. At this point, he suspects the spirit is hiding something. Either the power isn't as great as advertised, or the harm it brings far outweighs the benefits. It would be great if the spirit just came clean about what it's hiding, because Rack doesn't want things getting complicated. He decides to head back and collapse the cave's entrance, making sure no one ever stumbles across this place again. The spirit panics and promises to reveal everything it can. It identifies itself as a being descended from those who ruled the world in the distant past, the so-called ancient demons long forgotten by time. The gods are so ancient that they cannot remember their own origins, and neither can this spirit. No matter how hard it tries, the only thing it knows is that it has been sealed for eternity. A power with an unknown origin intoxicates people precisely because its source is unknown. But our chat of a lizard is different. He isn't falling for it blindly. Rack recalls the Blue Lizard tribe leader and the Frogman leader as perfect examples of people corrupted by power. Demonic magic in particular is what intoxicates people the most. What makes it worse is that this stingray-looking spirit could bestow its powers to any random person. It doesn't matter if the receiver is someone with noble intentions or someone harboring malicious ones. Gods bestow power by their own will, but this spirit's gifts can fall into the hands of anyone, even the undeserving. To make matters worse, whoever wields this demonic power can further enhance it and grow even stronger. Eventually, the wielder of this omnipotent power will reject the gods entirely. To avoid that outcome, Rack considers taking the power all for himself, especially since it is truly formidable and indescribably potent. It will definitely come in handy in future battles. In the end, Rack decides to set the stingray free under one major stipulation. First, Rack wants his tribe to be the sole wielder of this power. He also wants these powers to appear as if they were bestowed by the gods. That way, no one will lose their faith in God. In fact, their faith would only grow stronger. The second condition is that he wants the stingray to start believing in his god. Of course, the stingray finds the idea ridiculous for a being far more ancient than the god Rock follows. The thought of believing in such a deity feels strange. Furthermore, gods typically despise spirits of demonic magic, but Rakra counters the stereotype. He believes his god isn't some average deity. The blue insect god is generous to beings who hold value. Since the stingray is useful enough, it goes without saying that the blue insect god would approve of it already. Still, the stingray isn't sure whether the god Rack speaks of would accept it right off the bat. Rack promises that if the stingray accepts the terms, his god is benevolent enough to make an exception. The stingray then reveals a small secret. Not only is it trapped in this ruin, it is also the sole ruler of this place. Everything here, from the creatures to the ruin guardian Rack defeated, is merely one of its minions. The stingray was simply testing Rock's strength by putting him through all this trouble. For that, the entity apologizes, but Rack is willing to forgive it. After all, he understands the creature's perspective as well. He knows the spirit longs to escape this cursed place and experience something beautiful the world still has to offer. Eventually, the entity asks for Rock's name, and the lizard man happily tells him. And with that, the test the stingray had been conducting finally concludes. Now, it is time for it to bestow the power Rack rightfully deserves.